This is the Austen Mini. It is a book-inspired bag. So the pattern will have a front, a spine, a back, and then an inside part that has a gusset closure. The straps are connected to the gusset. The front part closes over the magnets, just like that. This bag has two different finishes. You can do raw edges like I did here and then edge coat, or you can do right sides together and turn out. There are also two ways to carry this bag, like this, which is sideways, or have the straps on the left and right sides, and that would be standing up. You're going to need the regular notions that I usually always have. So that's double-sided tape, clips and pins, rotary cutter, scissors, cutting mat, fabric pen and chalk, ruler, needles, thread for sewing machine, iron, ironing board, rivet press if you're using your edge coat, and spray adhesive. I use E6000, which is this one here, and this is really helpful for when you put the interior and exterior together. So you just spray the inside of it and then just press it down, and it makes it like one whole cohesive piece. I didn't have the fabric spray before I made this one, so you can kind of see where there's like air in between, and it's just like a little bubbly. One of the great things about this bag pattern is that you can make it either standing up or sideways. And the thing is, even though it looks like a book, when you carry it standing up, it's going to carry like this. Like here's the strap connectors. So when you have it closed, your straps will be here, and then you carry it on your hip like this. So it's going to be standing up, and visually it looks like a book, but I feel like for bags, because it's not really symmetrical where this is closed and this is open, it's not very visually appealing as a bag. But when you have it sideways and you have the strap connectors here on the side, and then you carry it sideways, even though it kind of just looks like a book that's got turned to its side, it looks more visually appealing as a bag, and you're carrying it like this on your hip. So the decision to either carry it standing up or sideways is up to you, and it's just a preference. So before you start cutting, especially this part of the bag where you're cutting the pages, the gusset, and the zipper panel, you want to decide if you want your bag to look like this or like this when you carry it. It doesn't so much matter on the exterior side. What matters is this side, this part here. This is the page panel, this is the gusset, and then this is the zipper panels. By default, this pattern is written so that it is made with a sideways carry in mind. So if you want to do a standing up carry like this one, you will have to change how the gusset and the zipper panel are cut. So for the standing up bag, you want to cut your panel up and down like this. So this will be like that. When you cut your zipper panel, it's going to be the longest side is this way, and then the shortest side is this way. So it's going to look something like this. Instead of cutting it like this, you want to cut it like this. For your gusset, what I have down is that you are cutting the gusset up and down like this. So the short sides are up here, the long sides go all the way down. So you're cutting it like this. And the reason for this is that when you wrap it around your panel, you can have one side going up and down. However, the bad thing about this is that because it's directional, when you wrap it all the way around, you're going to have one side that is upside down. So here's what my gusset looks now that I've put the two pieces together. I just sewed it, and then I put Decaville Heavy and fused it down the middle to strengthen the two pieces together, and then top stitched around the seams. And then I just cut off whatever excess I had on the side to make it the correct size for the gusset. In the paper instructions, in the letter instructions, if you printed out the whole thing, then you would see that this exact piece was in the page before this one. So this is page 6, 7, 8, right? This is on page 5, so it's on the page right before it. So if for some reason you did not want to print out all of the pieces where you have like straight edges, then I provided this on page 5. If you printed out the whole thing, you only need one of these, okay? You don't have to keep both, and you don't have to cut two of these same things. This is the same piece. It says the same thing here. Do not throw away, cut out vinyl. This will be used for H slip pocket. This is H slip pocket, this piece when you cut it out, and this is H slip pocket. So you only need one paper pattern of this, and you only need one fabric of this. Here is what this interior cover will look like when you cut and sew it. So it's going to look like this. When you open it, I used solid for this bag, and I'm going to use a solid for this one. And using a solid or just a non-directional is a great choice for this bag if you don't want to think too much about it. But if you want to add a little flair to your bag when you open it, you want to make sure that you have this cut out in the right direction for your directional fabric. So if you have directional fabric and you want it to kind of match a book like this, so when you open it, it's like, oh, there's this cover here, right? And you want it to go up and down to match the up and down of a regular book, then you have to cut your fabric this way, where the long edge is going across like this and the short edge going down here. This is how you want to cut it. Now, if you are doing a sideways carry, which opens up like this, and you want to use directional fabric, but you don't want the directional fabric to be sideways when you open your book bag, you're going to want to cut your fabric a different way. You want to cut it where the long sides are here and the short sides are down here. So like, for example, if this was my paper pattern, I would do it like this. One thing that I forgot to tell you in this video, and I had to come back here and make sure that I did it, but for your J interior cover, you have one vinyl. However, this vinyl will need a stabilizer like Decaville Heavy, Decaville Light, and on your cut list, you're going to have the stabilizer and then the pattern pieces, and one of the stabilizers is for the J cover stabilizer, or interior cover stabilizer. So it's for this one, and I didn't do it for mine because this vinyl is actually like pretty foamy and it's super thick. Let me show you how thick it is compared to like a regular vinyl. So I don't really need a stabilizer for it. So I skipped that part, and that's why I forgot to record it. But you will need the stabilizer for this. You can use Decaville Heavy, Decaville Light, just something pretty stiff, something that won't wrinkle when you fuse it on. And the thing with this stabilizer is it's much shorter than it needs to be, because the turning point is going to be down here. If you're going to finish your bag by doing it right sides together and then pulling it right sides out and then closing the gap, that's the turning. So you're going to turn your bag from the bottom. So I added a little bit of extra space here on the vinyl so that it's easier to turn. So the stabilizer is just a little bit shorter. So in order to make sure that your stabilizer is in the right place, you want to take your stabilizer, deck a little heavy or light, whatever it is that you're using. So just, we'll say this is my stabilizer. You want to match up the corners on the top, and the stabilizer is 3/8 of an inch from the edges. So you want to get it 3/8 of an inch here from the top, and then 3/8 of an inch from the sides. And then it's going to match up perfectly. And then at the bottom, you'll just have a little bit of a longer, like a larger space here between the stabilizer and your vinyl. And that's how you want it to be. So once you stabilize it, then you can draw out this cut out piece, place this on top, and then cut out this piece right here. And then that way this whole thing is stabilized, and it's stabilized neatly before you've cut this window. For this part of the pattern with the dashed lines, you can go ahead and cut it out, and you can use this whole piece as a guideline on where to cut this on your fabric, or you can do it manually. So I like to do it manually just to make sure that I have everything straight. If you're doing this manually, like for example, if you didn't want to print this whole thing out and you're just looking at the instructions, this part of the process is in the prepping part of the instructions. So it's before your step 1. So what you want to do, doing this manually, is I like to find the top of my bag and just write T for top, B for bottom. Okay, so here's the bottom part of my interior cover, and now what we want to do is measure. On the bottom side of the panel, we're going to measure 1 5/8 from the bottom, and then draw a line like I already did here. And then on the long sides here and here, we're going to measure 1 3/8, and then draw a line here, and then measure 1 3/8 again. And now we're going to take our cut out for H slip pocket and place it right here, and it should exactly match where our lines are. And then I'm just going to draw where the corners curve right here. And then again over here. And if you want, you can draw all the way across, but to make sure that I have everything straight, I'm going to use a ruler for it. Now what we have to do is cut this out, and I like using a ruler and rotary cutter just to make sure that my straight edges are truly straight. And I'm just going to cut straight edges. I'm not going to go in where the curved corners are. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut the corners, and when you cut the corners, you want to move your fabric around the curves instead of your scissors, and it just cuts it cleaner that way. So here is the interior J piece of the pattern, and then this is the H slip pocket. So you want to keep both of these pieces. Do not throw this one away. One of the things that you can do during the prepping part is to decorate either the back, spine, or front exteriors of your bag. Now, in the instructions I have this done later on, but you can do it during the prep stages before you start step 1. The reason for that is maybe whatever you are using to decorate your back spine or front with is easier to put on before you sew the whole thing together, because once you sew the whole thing together, it's basically just going to be this one long piece. So it might be difficult to work with. One of the easy things to do when they are apart like this is to use HTV, to apply decorative magnets, to do appliques, anything like that. So in the paper pattern, if you chose to print it out, you will see that like this interior cover, the front spine and the back cover paper pieces will have this blue line around it to indicate where the seam allowance is, and it will also have the center circle to show you where the center of the panel will be. So the seam allowance for all of these 3 pieces is 3/8 inch seam allowance. That means when you are putting the spine together with like the back cover, you are sewing at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So then when you turn it back around and top stitch it, you are losing this 3/8 over here. So if you choose to decorate with like HTV, or if you want to paint it even, then the 3/8 around these panels would be within the seam allowance, so you won't be able to see them. If you're using a decorative magnet, not necessarily to use as a magnet, but to use it for decoration like I did here, what you want to make sure that you do first is to strengthen your fabric by adding Decaville Heavy to it. So if you're going to use magnets, I suggest sewing it all together, then fusing it with your Decaville Heavy or Decaville Light, and then adding your magnets. And that will be just part of the prepping part. And then since that is step 1 and 2 of the instructions, you can go ahead and skip those steps since you already did them. The only decoration I've done is this one, and it's just an applique that I put on the front panel here. The good thing about this is that even after I sew these 3 pieces together and put the interfacing on there, or not the interfacing, the stabilizer, I can always go back and decorate some more, add some more things if while I'm sewing the bag I decide that I want to add more. So I may add more later, but for now, here's what it looks like. For your hardware and materials that are not fabrics, you're going to need webbing that is 1 inch. I have 1.5 inch here, and I'm going to have to shrink down the ends to fit the 1 inch rectangle rings, and you should have a matching with adjustable slider for your webbing. And then 12 inches of zipper tape, 1 zipper pull. You could do 2 if you wanted to, but it's such a small bag that I just go with 1. You need 2 pairs or 2 sets of magnets, and then this is optional, some rivets. Let's get on with our materials, starting with A. You have your spine, B, you've got your front exterior, and C, the back exterior. And if you are using woven and canvas, again, they need to be interfaced, and they don't need to be stabilized until you've put these pieces together. For D, we have our strap connectors. You need 2 of them. We have our E, zipper panel exterior and interior. This one is F, your gusset exterior and interior. G, page panel exterior and interior. H, your slip pocket, which will be cut out from your interior cover, which is the last piece. So this will be cut out from there. Do not throw this piece away. This will be your slip pocket. I is page panel B, which is the exact same size as your exterior and interior page panels. So these are all the same size. If you're using different fabrics for these, make sure that you either use the labels or you write on the back what the fabrics are for. That way you don't get them mixed up and you don't mess up your bag. And the last is J interior cover. I went over the zipper tape, the webbing, and then all of these pattern pieces. Now what we have left are the stabilizers. You have your exterior cover stabilizer. This doesn't have a letter because you have to have your exterior pieces, spine, front, and back exterior sewn together first before you can put this on there. So there's no letter for that one. Here it is. And I will not fuse this until after I've sewn my exterior pieces together. So this one is still here. Now for the zipper panel, gusset, page panel, and interior cover stabilizers, all of these are stabilizers. They need to have already been fused onto your fabrics. So at this point, all of the pieces are ready except for this one, which has yet to be fused. And we will start with step 1. We're going to need our A spine, B front exterior, and C back exterior. First, we're going to place our front exterior and spine right sides together along the long edge and just clip in place. And then we're going to sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. I already marked my allowance so that I know exactly where to sew. Here's what it looks like. And then make sure that you backstitch on the ends. And I usually sew at about a 4 length for my machine. I have a Juki Industrial. Now we're going to sew the spine, other edge of the spine, to the back exterior, and we're going to put them right sides together and then clip them together. Here's what it looks like sewn up all together. If you are using fabric, you can push the seams in and iron it. If you're using vinyl, you can use something like a seam roller to help flatten it out. Mine's a little bit foamy, so this isn't really helping too much, but you want to push the seams in towards the spine, and then we're going to top stitch at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Here it is top stitch. You can't really see it because I used black thread, but I increased my thread length to 5. Usually I use a 4, so when I top stitch I do a 5 length, and then here's the back. Now I'm going to take my stabilizer and place it on the back. Make sure it's centered, and then I'm going to fuse it. We're going to set this aside, and the good thing is you can always add decoration before you put the whole thing together if you decide that you want to add more to it. So let's move this over, and we're going to gather our pieces for the second part. Next, we're going to sew together what will make up the pages of the book bag. This is the part of the bag that you put your items in. This is the pages part of the bag. So you've got your front panel, you've got your gusset, and your zipper panel here. The mistake I did with this bag in specific is that I put my zipper tape right here on the back when it should be on the front. That way it's easier to open and close. So for this pages part of the bag, here are all the things that we need. We've got our zipper tape and then the zipper pull that comes with it. You have your zipper panel exterior and interior, and then this is the page panel exterior and interior, and then this is page panel B. Then you're going to need your gusset exterior and interior. This is the slip pocket, and then if you're going to rivet your connectors, you're going to need your rivets, and then these are the two connectors, and 2 rectangle rings, and then 2 magnets. First, we're going to get our 2 strap connectors, turn them over to the wrong side, measure down the middle. We're going to make sure that we have the short sides up here, long sides going up and down. So half of this will be 1 inch. We're going to just draw a line down the middle of both of them. And then take some double-sided tape, place them on the left and right sides of the line that you just drew. Remove the double-sided tape. And then fold the long edges in towards the middle where you drew that line. And now we have 2 strap connectors. Now we need to sew this down, so we can do 1/8 on both long sides here, and then 1/8 on either side of the middle, here and here. Take the straps and the rectangle ring and slip it through, and then clip together. Do the same for the other one. You can go ahead and baste these together if you like, or you can just leave them clipped and then set them aside for the next step. We're going to put our zipper panel together, and you're going to need your zipper tape, exterior zipper panel, and your interior zipper panel. You want to use some double-sided tape for this, or you can baste this all together, or just sew it all together at the end if you are confident in making sure that they don't shift. So I'm going to use the double-sided tape, making sure that my exterior zipper panel is going this way for directional, and then place the zipper tape and exterior right sides together at the bottom of the zipper panel. And because I like to have the zipper tape longer than the zipper panel, we're going to make sure that it is centered so that you don't accidentally have too short of a zipper tape piece on one of the short corners. So just make sure that it's centered. And then we're going to do the same thing for the for the interior. So tape right down the bottom. And then place it right sides to wrong sides of the zipper tape. So this is the wrong side of the zipper panel interior, and this is the right side of the zipper panel interior. This is the wrong side of the zipper tape. This is the right side of the exterior. And then we're going to sew this together at 3/8 inch seam allowance down the bottom. Here's what the zipper panel looks like, and we have the zipper tape sandwiched in between. Now what we are going to do is turn it right side out. Make sure you pull the seam, or you pull this out. Get it to lay as flat as you can, making sure that you pull both fabrics away from the zipper tape. Either iron or use a seam roller. And then we are going to top stitch at 1/8 inch seam allowance down this edge. The zipper tape is top stitched. Now we're going to add our zipper pull, and depending on if you are doing standing up or sideways, you want to make sure that you put your zipper pull where you want it to be. For sideways, it doesn't really matter if you put it on this way, closing over here, or if you put it on this way, closing to the right. It's just a matter of preference. For standing up, if you place your zipper tape to the left, closing here, it will not be visible on your bag, so it will be over here, and when you close it you won't be able to see it. If you place it closing to this side, when you close it you'll be able to see it on the right side of the bag. After doing the top stitch for your zipper panel, you want to get your strap connectors. I already added double-sided tape on the back of these, and then I'm going to place the connectors with the edges lined up with the edges of the side of the zipper tape on the short sides. Do the same for the other connector. And you can see how they line up right here and back here. And then since I have double-sided tape, I don't really need to baste it, but you can go ahead and baste it at like 1/4 inch from the zipper panel side going down this way. Now that we have the zipper panel put together, we're going to attach the gusset exterior and interior together with the zipper panel. We're going to start with the exterior and line it up short sides together with the zipper panel and have a little bit of the zipper tape and the strap connector sticking out, but you want to line this up with the zipper panel. So I'm just going to clip this together. And then I'm going to take my interior gusset and then place it right behind the zipper panel. So matching up the interior with interior here. And then lining up the back, or lining up the short sides. So it should look like this. And then sew at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance down this side. With the pieces sewn together, you've got the exterior, interior gusset, and then the zipper panel sandwiched in between. You have it sewn on one side. Now we're going to put these ends together. Make sure you line it up with the zipper panel, not the zipper tape. Clip it together. And then again, sew at 3/8 inch seam allowance on this side. With these sewn together, we're going to turn them right side out and then pull the gusset away from the zipper panel. And we're going to top stitch this side and this side at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now you have a loop for your gusset and your zipper panel, and at this point you can add rivets down here right by the connectors if you want to, but you don't have to. That is optional. I'm going to baste all around here and here to put my interior and exterior together. And then over here I'm going to do the same just for the gusset part of it. This only has one layer, so I don't need to sew any part of this. Here's what it looks like after I baste both of the sides except for the zipper part of it. Now we have to orient ourselves with how we are going to put our bag together. Again, I am doing a sideways carry bag, so my bag is going to look like this, and then this is going to be like that. So the zipper tape's going to be up here, and the bottom will be like that. If you are doing standing up, then your bag will look more like this. For now, we're going to set this gusset to the side, and we're going to work with the page panel exterior. Now we're going to add our magnets. So gather the halves of your magnet. So you need two, right? Here's one, and then one of them has the button poking out, and then one has an indentation for the button. So usually with the main part of the bag that is not the flap, I like to use the one with the indentation going in because it's usually heavier than the one that has the button poking out. So the heavier piece is the one I'm going to use for this part of the bag. Here's what the pattern looks like. This is the guide that we're going to use. You can go ahead and just like poke a hole through the circle and then turn this over to the back side. Now, depending on if you are doing standing up or sideways carry is where you want to put your magnet. So since I am doing sideways carry and this pattern is written for that, this is just going to go over like this. If you're doing standing up, you want to make sure that your top is up here. So for example, if the top part of my panel is up here, the bottom is down here, I'm just going to make sure I turn it over correctly. And then my magnets are going to go on this side of the panel. So if you accidentally put it on the right side, you turn it over, your magnets will be here. That means that when you have your bag, your magnets are not going to be here, they're going to be on this side. So make sure that you have your magnet on the correct side of the panel. So again, top, bottom, turn it over, magnets go on your left side here. I'm just going to follow, making sure that my panel is still the correct way. Just going to place this right on top. And then mark here and here, and you can't really see it. Okay, now you can see it a lot better. So that's what it looks like on the back. That's where you will put the center of your washer. You see how there's a center on the washer? That's where this will go. And this one. Just like that. Okay, before I move on, I want to make sure that my my placement is correct. So I'm going to measure 1.5 from the left side and 1 inch from the bottom. Okay, and then over here, 1 inch from the bottom, 1.5 from the left. Okay, or from the right actually. So let's go back to this. And now what you want to do is mark where you are going to cut the holes for where the prongs will go. And you're going to use your washer as a guide on where to do that. And then I usually just use a seam ripper and just cut through the lines. And from here we just install our magnets. So we've got this here. Place the washers. And then I'm just going to fold them out. You can take a mallet and just gently just mash everything down. And then take some duct tape and place them right on top. And I'm going to try to avoid the seam allowance here. This just makes sure that your prongs don't rub up against the interior and cut any part of it. Here's what it looks like from the front. Here I marked all of my centers. I used a pen for this one, and then I cut on this one. And these are the centers here. And skip cutting anything on your zipper tape. Use a chalk for this one. I'm going to turn this inside out. And then on the zipper side, I'm going to match up the center with the right side of the panel and clip together. And then I'm going to do the same with the bottom and clip together. And then the sides. Working from these centers, I'm going to continue to clip until I get to the corners and stop. Then I'm going to go on the gusset where the corners are, and I'm just going to snip right behind where I had basted the gusset, just like that. And then I'm going to do the same for the other curved corners. And I'm going to skip cutting the zipper tape. Here's what this corner looks like. And then when you spread it out, pull it to the corner, and it should just line up like that. And then clip it in place. If you're worried that your clips are going to pop out, you can use double-sided tape, or you can staple it. And I'm just going to do the same for this corner as well. I fold it like this, and then I push it out, and I pull it, and then it just lines up perfect. For the zipper tape part, because you didn't cut any part of this, I don't like cutting the zipper tape because then it might fray. So I just pull this as much as I can. And then clipping will sometimes make it pop off. So you can use something like pins, like this, or you can staple it. So I'm going to get my staples, and I'm going to staple this corner right here. Just like that. And then do the same up here. And 1 second, I'm trying to make sure it doesn't come off, but also that I don't go past the seam allowance. So there we go. Do the same for this side. Put your zipper pull in, okay? Just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this for the corners down here as well. Oh. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to sew at 3/8 inch seam allowance. And one thing that I find difficult is sewing around the curves, especially when you have this flat and you're trying to make sure that you don't get any wrinkles. So I use a stiletto or something like this, and while I have this under the machine, I'm just pressing the wrinkles flat and then sewing. So I just press everything flat and then I sew, and then when I turn it right side out, it's super smooth. After sewing the two pieces together, if you put any staples on your bag, then go ahead and take them out. Before we move on, let's turn this right side out and make sure that everything was caught in the stitches and everything looks good. So this is exactly how your bag should look right now. If your bag is not like how you want it to, if there's something wrong with it, go ahead and fix it now before moving on. Once you've made sure that your bag looks good, you're going to take it and turn it inside out again, and then you're going to take your page panel interior and we're going to place it right on top of this. But first we need to fold in the gusset just like this. I clipped everything down so that it stays down better, and then you're going to take the page panel interior, this is the right side, turn it over on top of this piece just like that. So this is the wrong side that we're looking at right now. We're going to line up the whole thing and clip all the way around. As I was clipping the pieces together, I didn't feel like this was totally secure because of the bulk in here. So I went ahead and stapled a few places. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start from the bottom and about 2 inches in or 1 inch in, whatever you feel comfortable with. And so make sure you backstitch a couple of times and then sew all the way around at 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then stop about 1 inch or 2 inches. So depending on how stiff everything is, you might want to just do like 1 inch in if it's very stiff, but if you feel like you can turn this out no problem, you can go in 2 inches. After you sew all the way around, leaving a gap right here, you can snip the corners here, but just make sure that you tuck in the zipper tape on this top part so that you don't cut any of the zipper tape over there. Then you can also trim down the sides here, but make sure you stop right here before you get to the zipper tape so that you don't accidentally cut it. Now I'm going to turn this right side out, and this is going to be a little bit difficult because I did use vinyl and Decaville heavy. Once this is right side out, this is what it's going to look like. And then here you will have that gap opening, and you're just going to fold it in just like that until it closes up this gap and you can't see any of the stitches. And then you can flatten out everything, make sure that there's nothing sticking out, nothing super bumpy, and just try to get it as good as you can. You can iron it if possible, or steam it, but you just want it to look as good as it can. There are 2 ways to close this gap on the bag. So like I said before, you can top stitch everything down. So fold this in, and then you can have your bag facing like this, put it under the needle, and then your needle on this side of the bag at 1/8 inch seam allowance, go all the way around, and then you can top stitch it that way, or you can turn this bag like this and then close this up and you can put some double-sided tape on it and then top stitch from this side of the bag and go all the way around at 1/8 inch seam allowance, sewing on this side of the bag. The other way to top stitch this is by hand sewing. One of my favorite ones to do to close a bag is doing a ladder stitch, and I'll show you how to do that. To sew this opening closed, what you want to do is have the bag turned like this with the inside part out, and then fold this piece in so that it is like 3/8 in, and then press this together so that you can see that all of your stitches are going to be covered up once you have this part folded in. So it's going to look just like that. And then you just want to keep pressing this down until you create a memory crease, and that will make it easier for you to sew it closed. And then you take your needle and thread, and I'm using the same thread that I'm using to sew the bag in my machine, and just a regular needle. I think this one's probably a little thicker than just a regular sewing one. You're going to start by opening this up a little bit and then going to the very edge and taking your needle inside this piece and going up. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I went in between this fold and pulled it through, and that way you can't see the tail hanging out. The tail's going to be tucked in where the fold is. And then you want to go on this side and just go in, and then you're not going to poke your needle all the way through. You're not going to go all the way through to the outside of it. You're just going to keep it in this layer, the interior layer. Poke it through and then move forward about 1/4 of an inch. My hand's super slippery because I'm sweating. Okay, I just got this little piece of vinyl so that I can hang on to it a little bit more. And so push it through just like that. And then, as you can see, there's no needle poking out right there. It's just only on the inside, on the interior. Also, you want to try to get it as close as you can to these stitches. These are the 3/8 inch stitches, so you want to try to get it as close as you can. And then pull this all the way out. My hand is just sweating so bad. And then once you have that, you pull it all the way out. Just like that. And you're not going to pull it taut. And you can see where I started the stitch here and then went in here. So you don't want to pull this closed just yet. Now we're going to go to the opposite side, this one here, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go straight across where this came out of and just poke a hole through there, and then go about 1/4 of an inch and then pull the needle through. And we're just going to pull the threads, but we're not going to pull it all the way tight. Then we're going to take the needle again and go back on this side And again, we're not pushing the needle all the way through to the exterior. We're just going through the interior part of the fabric. Just like that, about another 1/4 of an inch, and then pull the needle out. And then repeat for this side. Then we're just going to keep repeating this pattern until we get to the very end of it right here. Here's what it looks like once you get to the very end of it. Don't tie it off just yet, and don't cut anything off. You just want to leave this long tail here. And then what you want to do is pull this thread this way, and then it will tighten up this gap over here and close it. Ideally, what you want to happen is for the thread to just glide smoothly out and then tighten up this whole opening. However, depending on the fabric that you used, this might be a little difficult and you might get stuck. So I know that with this fabric that I used, it's waterproof canvas, there's a rubber backing on the back, and it's pretty stiff and thick. So I know that this is going to be difficult to tighten up this thread if I just pulled it. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to get a stiletto, or you can use like something like this or something like this, and start from one end and just pull the thread, like pick a thread, pull it to the left where you're closing it, and then that will tighten up the thread behind it. And then you're gonna take the next thread and then just pull it, and that's gonna tighten up the one behind it, and then just keep going until you get to the end. Once you get to the end, if you see that your threads are still a little bit loose like mine, you can go back and just keep pulling it until it's completely tight. You can take your needle and poke it through and out, just like that. You just need like a tiny little space, and then tie it off. Then you can do it a couple more times just to make sure that it's completely tied off and it's not gonna come out. Once you have it tied and super secure, you're just going to cut it off as much as you can right there, and then you can get a lighter and just burn off this end. You can see it right there. That's where I ended. And then when you turn your bag right side out, just make sure that you press the seams in, make everything flat, just like that. If your bag got messed up and it's all wrinkly again, just go ahead and flatten it out, hit it with some iron or steam. And here's what it looks like with the gap closed up. You can't see anything on it. Everything is smooth and there's no top stitching. This bag is almost finished, but before we can finish it, we're going to set it aside and grab our slip pocket. Here is the slip pocket I have, and you're going to lay it like this, and then fold it wrong sides together, match up the edges, and then clip it. Then we're going to top stitch the folded edge at 1/8 inch seam allowance. But when you back stitch, make sure you back stitch about 1/2 inch in at the start and 1/2 inch in at the end, because we're going to be cutting off the excess on this. Here's what it looks like with the folded edge top stitched. Now what we're going to do is sew around the raw edges at 1/2 inch seam allowance. After sewing the slip pocket at 1/2 inch seam allowance around these 3 sides, what you want to do is trim it down to 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to use my ruler and my rotary cutter to make sure that I cut it straight. When you're using vinyl, sometimes there's going to be like little cotton edges. What you can do is just take your lighter and then just go around the raw edges really quick. It should take no more than 2 seconds to just zip around. After you trim off the seam allowance down to 1/8 of an inch, you can edge coat these raw edges, and then once you're finished with that, then you can move on to the next step. This is probably going to take a while if you edge coat it. Now you need your slip pocket and page panel B, and we're going to go on the back side of this. This one pretty much looks the same, but I'm going to call this the front and this is the back. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of double-sided tape and I'm going to lay it across the bottom edge of this slip pocket, peel it off. Oh, it peeled off completely. And then peel it off, peel off the backing. Then on page panel B, I'm going to measure 1.5 inch from the bottom edge. And then I'm going to place the slip pocket wrong side to right side and make sure it's centered onto the panel. If you're doing the standing up method or the standing up carry, your panel would look like this. And so you would measure 1.5 inch from the bottom and then place your slip pocket right on top, making sure it's centered. After putting down the slip pocket on top of the page panel B and sticking down the double-sided tape down here, what you want to do next is top stitch around the left, bottom, and right sides of the slip pocket. Leave this part open so that you can access the pocket, and you are going to sew at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, so it's going to be inside the stitches that you made out here. Here's the slip pocket sewn in. I also put in this label on the side, and then here's what it looks like from the back. I did mess up a few times, so I had to pull the threads and tie them off back there, or back here, and then start over. Now we're going to take the piece that we just finished. This is page panel B and the slip pocket, and this piece that we finished beforehand. We're going to put these two together. Start with this piece right side out and have the inside facing up, and then page panel B, turn it over so that you are looking at the wrong side. Match up the centers on the top, on the bottom, and then on the sides. And then just like we did with this panel attaching to the gusset, we're just going to start clipping from the centers until we get to the corners and stop. After clipping the straight edges, we're going to snip the gusset right here where it bends so that we can ease it into the corner of this panel. After snipping the corners on the gusset, line it up with the curve of the panel, and then you can clip it together, or like before, you can use double-sided tape or staplers. Here's what it looks like after sewing this part of the bag and then page panel B, and here's the inside. Here's what it's supposed to look like. This part of the bag is going to be called pages, and this was the second of 4 parts of making the bag. This was by far the most difficult, and the next part will be much easier. Now we're going to take this piece, which is called pages. We're going to make sure that this piece fits perfectly into our interior cover. So here is the interior cover here, and we're going to turn it sideways, fit it through the opening of the interior cover, and it should just fit snugly right in. You want to make sure that it's not too loose, but also it's not too tight. You just want it just right. If it's too loose, the only solution to that is to cut out a new interior cover. If it's too tight, you'll have to make the hole slightly bigger, but you'll want to make sure that you cut very, very small amounts. That way you don't make it too big, and then you'll have to cut a new interior cover for that. So this is what you want it to look like. This is a perfect fit, and it's not too loose and it's not too tight. And then when you look back here, you can see that the 3/8 inch seam allowance is going to get caught right in there, and there's not going to be any part that's too short that won't get caught in the stitches when you sew these two together. Once you know that this fits, go ahead and take it out. And then we're going to use double-sided tape. On the wrong side of the interior cover, you want to add some double-sided tape right along the edges of the opening. Then peel off the backing. After we peel off the backing, we're going to place it right on top of the pages, just like we did before when we tested it. And since we tested it, then we know that this fits perfectly over it. I'm going to line up everything and make sure that you don't see any of the stitches from the pages. And then just finger press these two pieces together. Make sure none of the stitches are peeking out, and this looks good. After you press these two together, what you need to do now is sew these two pieces together by sewing 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down on this side of the fabric. And you want to make sure that you're using something like a zipper foot or something that will allow you to sew these two pieces together without pushing this part of the bag away from the interior cover. Here's a closer look of what it should look like when you're sewing it together. You want to use something that doesn't have a foot on this side so that this part of the fabric doesn't get pulled away from this part. Here's what it looks like with both pieces sewn together. Next, we're going to attach our magnets. So we're going to need the last two magnets that we have that matches up with these two and the washers. On the wrong side of the interior bag, on this side of the fabric where we had marked top earlier, is where you're going to place your magnets. Now we're going to find the center for these washers for the magnet. So that's going to be 2 inches from the top, the short side, and 2 3/8 from the long sides. And then we're just going to draw a dot right here, and then do the same thing for this other side, 2 inches from the top and 2 3/8 from the long sides. Before we place our magnets on there, we're going to make sure that these are placed properly, because depending on the materials you have, the thickness, and how sturdy it is, this might change the placement of your magnet. So I'm going to turn this over to the right side and then place these magnets right on top of the ones that are already on there. And then I'm going to flip this over right on top of it. When we flip it over to this side and we're lining everything up, we're pushing down on it, sometimes this part can get pushed in, and then that's going to affect whether or not you feel like your placement is correct or incorrect. So what I'm going to do is just place this tape right inside. That way when I'm pressing down, it's not collapsing the bag, and it's not going to affect the placement of the magnet. So I'm going to place this right on top of it. Match up these corners as best as I can. This looks about right. And then I'm going to feel around for where the magnet is. And I'm trying to see if I have my dots in the correct spot. And it looks like I do. So I made 2 dots here because I wasn't sure, but it looks like this is the one that I need. And then this one is in the correct spot that it's supposed to be on. Okay, now I'm going to take out that tape, turn it over to the wrong side. Now I'm going to place my washers right on top of those dots and mark out where those cuts are supposed to be for the prongs. After cutting the holes for the prongs, we're going to take the prongs that we had on here and place them through. After pushing the prongs through and before I completely install this magnet, I'm just going to double check again that I have my magnet placements correct. So I'm going to turn this over to the right side and just lay it right on top. And let's see. Okay. This one fits just like that, but then this one is a little off, so I need to move it up here a little bit. So I'm going to just take that out. I fixed the magnet. Hopefully this one fits just right now. And they both snap into place perfectly. So this is good, and now I can finish installing the magnets. After installing the magnet, this part is finished. We are now 3/4 of the way through, and the only thing left to do is place the exterior and this part of the bag together and then make the straps. There are two ways to finish this bag. There is turning it right side out, and then there's doing raw edges. So when you turn it right side out, you first have to put these pieces right sides together, sew around 3 sides, and then birth the bag out and top stitch everything, and then that will close the gap. The second way is by placing these two bags, or these two pieces, wrong sides together, and then stitching around all of the raw edges, and that closes the whole bag. And then you can also edge coat if you like. For this bag, I'm going to do raw edges. If you would like to do the turning out method, I do have those instructions in the PDF file, so you can follow those instructions there. The first step to doing the raw edges is to place double-sided tape along the edges of the bag, and I'm placing them a little bit away from the edge because it will end up getting cut off, and I want to try to avoid getting like sticky stuff on the edge of the bag once everything is cut off. So I put double-sided tape on all 4 edges. Something extra that I also like to do is spray some adhesive on it, and this just gives it a cleaner finish. It just sticks the 2 pieces together. I suggest doing the spray adhesive because it gets all over the place, and when it sticks together you don't get like any hard places and then other places that are soft. So like if you use this one, you would just like do like this, but then when you put the pieces together, you'll have places that are hard and like stuck together, but then other places that aren't. So you would have to like blend it all together, and it's just a lot more work, and a spray is just much easier. I'm going to remove the double-sided tape so I don't have sticky stuff all over my fingers if I try to take the double-sided tape out after I'm done straight. And then what we want to do is line up the top corners, so it's going to be this side lined up with the front of your exterior. So this is the front of my exterior. Make sure that you don't mix them up and you accidentally put it on the back if you are doing like a unique design where your front is specific. So I'm going to line up the corners. Do this very carefully so that you don't misalign anything. And then just gently, don't press down yet, just gently place it on top. Okay, so I'm just feeling around the edges. This one's just a little off. Okay, I'm going to check all 4 sides. And once you think everything is even, then you can start pressing down slightly. You don't have to press down too hard because if you did the double-sided tape, it's going to stick on the edges. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is check the back, or actually this would be the front technically. So this is the exterior. One thing that you will notice is that you have a little bit of excess here on the bottom part of the inside of your bag, the interior cover. And the reason for that is for turning out. So you don't need this excess part for raw edges, you only need it for turning out. And for turning out, it just helps when you have more material to work with, when you push the the little flaps in to close the gap. So that's what it's for. But since I'm going to be doing raw edges, then I will go ahead and cut that off. But I'm still checking around the edges here, making sure that everything's aligned. And I'm going to go back and look over here because I felt a little bit of movement. So I'm just going to flatten everything out again and make sure everything is pushed in together. I'm going to go in here because I can't really press this down, otherwise I'll wrinkle the bag. So I'm just going to press my hand in there and then press around the pages of the bag right on the outside of it. And this particular spray that I have requires you to wait a few minutes for it to dry. So I'm gonna let it sit for about 5 minutes. What I will also do is just stack some books right on top of it. And this has worked really well in the past when I did this with another pattern. That way I'm not just pressing down on it the whole time. All right, it's been a few minutes, so I'm going to take these books off of here. And this looks really good. It looks super stiff. It looks like it glued together really well. So I'm going to take this thing from behind it, and I'm going to turn this over and remove the excess from back here. Alright, here's what it looks like after I've trimmed away that excess down here. And now what I'm going to do is sew all around the raw edges. Here's what the bag looks like after sewing the edges together. Next, we're going to trim off the edges so that you've only got 1/8 of an inch from the edge to the stitches. Here's what it looks like. And then when we close it, it should just snap in place. And then what you can do also is just press this down like this, and you can get a nice squared edge on the spine of the bag. And then just kind of press the edge into place. That way the spine doesn't look super rounded. And there we go. Now it looks like a book. If you would like to edge coat your bag, you can do so now. This would take a while to do because you'd have to apply base coat, color, and top coat. So you can go ahead and do that while you're making the strap. And don't forget to keep checking your edge coats as you make your straps. Making the straps doesn't take super long, but doing the edge coat does take a long time. To make the straps for your bag, you're going to need 1-inch webbing and your 1-inch slide adjuster. For this particular bag, I'm going to use 1.5-inch because this is the only kind of webbing that I have to match this one. but for the sake of this video and the instructions, I'm going to just put together a 1-inch webbing for you so you can see how it's supposed to be put together. The first thing you're going to do is take one end of the webbing and place it through the slide adjuster middle bar, just like this, and you want about 1.5 inch over, and then just clip it together. You can go ahead and sew it now if you'd like, but I like to clip everything and then sew everything at once, so I wait to the end to do that. And then you're going to take the other end of your webbing and slide it down this rectangle ring. Now I'm just going to pull this all the way down so I can see where this end is facing, and I'm going to take this same end and go up and over the middle bar, like that. Just going to pull it all the way through and make sure that my straps aren't all twisted up, and then place the other end through this rectangle ring like that, and then have about 1.5 inch folded over, and then clip it in place. Now that your webbing is clipped together, all you have to do is sew them down here and here, and then your bag is finished.